I never thought I'd be that guy, the one who finds out his wife is cheating on him, but here I am penning down my thoughts. My name is Jake, and for the last 6 years I've called Lisa my wife. We had built what I thought was a solid life together. We had a comfortable home in a nice neighborhood, decent jobs, and a circle of friends that seemed to love us as a couple. But the cracks started to show, and I was too blinded by love to see them. It all started about 6 months ago. Lisa began staying late at work more often. At first, I brushed it off as her being dedicated. She had recently been promoted to project manager, and I admired her work ethic. But as the weeks went by, her late nights became almost regular, and the excuses just didn't add up. She'd say she was meeting clients or working on presentations, but there was a different vibe in our home. Conversations dwindled, and the intimacy we once shared felt forced and mechanical. I tried to communicate my concerns, but every time I brought it up, Lisa would roll her eyes and call. "Paranoid? You're just being insecure," she'd say, flipping her hair dismissively. Each time I'd feel a pang of guilt for questioning her. Maybe I was overreacting, maybe I was just being a jealous husband, but deep down I felt something wasn't right. Things took a turn when I decided to surprise her one evening. I got off work early and planned a romantic dinner. I thought it would be a great way to reconnect. As I prepared the meal, I noticed her phone buzzing constantly with notifications. Normally, I wouldn't snoop, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked up her phone to check the messages while waiting for her to arrive home. What I found shattered my reality. There were flirty texts from a guy named Max who I'd never heard of before. I scrolled through the messages and my heart raced as I read them. They weren't just casual, they were explicit. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one message read. Another followed. "You make me feel alive in ways Jake never could." That hit like a punch to the gut. I felt sick. My breath quickened and I had to sit down. The world around me blurred as the realization sunk in. Lisa was cheating on me. When she finally walked through the door, I was still sitting at the dinner table, the half-cooked pasta forgotten. The look on her face was pure confusion at first, but as I held up her phone, the realization dawned on her. "What the hell, Jake?" she blurted out. "Care to explain this?" I spat back, anger bubbling up from a place I didn't know existed. Her face froze as she processed the situation, and for a few seconds silence filled the room. "Okay, I'll explain," she said, her tone shifting to defensive. "You've been so distant lately. I was just getting some attention elsewhere. It's not like we've been intimate. You don't even look at me anymore." The nerve of her accusations made my blood boil. I confronted her about the lies, the cheating, and the betrayal. I slammed the phone down on the table. I'd never felt so betrayed. She tried to talk her way out of it, spinning a tale of how it was just physical for her. "It didn't mean anything," she said. "You've been so wrapped up in your work." That moment felt surreal, like a scene from a bad movie. I was furious, hurt, and baffled. I had put so much into our marriage only to have it thrown back in my face. The emotional turmoil was overwhelming. I felt like I was living in two worlds, the one where I loved her and the one where I had to confront the reality of her deceit. The confrontation was just the beginning. I knew I had a decision to make about our future together. Would I fight for the marriage? Or was it time to walk away? The next few days were a blur of confusion and despair. I was angry, and I needed to channel that anger somewhere. I started to think about revenge, not in a violent sense, but something that would make her realize the weight of her actions. I wanted her to feel the way I felt, to understand that love isn't a game you play lightly. I decided right then that I wouldn't let this betrayal define me. I would take control of my life, and whatever came next, I would make sure it was on my terms. I had a plan brewing, and it was going to be a showstopper. The days after the confrontation were some of the most tumultuous of my life. I was a mix of anger and sadness, and the emotional roller coaster left me feeling drained. Most nights I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with the image of Lisa wrapped around another man. I had always thought our love was special, but it felt like a cruel joke now. As the initial shock started to fade, I began to think more clearly about my options. I didn't want to just walk away. I wanted her to understand the gravity of her betrayal. My mind kept circling back to Max, the magician Lisa had been seeing. I had no idea how deep their relationship went, but that wasn't the point. I was going to make sure she understood how it felt to lose something she took for granted. One evening, I decided to do some digging. I found Lisa's old planner tucked away in the drawer of our nightstand. It was a mess of appointments, work deadlines, and personal notes, but then I noticed something, dates circled in red. They corresponded with times she claimed to be working late. My stomach knotted as I flipped through it, realizing those dates represented her rendezvous with Max. I took a picture of those pages with my phone. It was time to gather evidence, not just for me, but to have something solid to confront her with later. I knew the more I gathered, the stronger my position would be. If I was going to make her feel the consequences of her actions, I needed to plan it carefully. During this time, I also started to change my behavior. I didn't want her to suspect anything. I acted as if everything was normal, putting on a facade that I was okay. I continued to go to work, socializing with friends, and even hanging out with Lisa. I wanted to keep her complacent while I executed my plan. Then one afternoon, as I was picking up groceries, I ran into an old friend, Derek, from college. He was always the life of the party and had a knack for magic tricks. We got to talking, and I could see the gears turning in his head as I explained my situation. He was taken aback by Lisa's betrayal and immediately offered to help. "Let me know what you need, man. I've got some tricks up my sleeve," he said, and I could see a mischievous glint in his eyes. That's when the idea hit me. What if I turned this whole situation into a performance? A grand illusion where Lisa would be the star, but where the show would ultimately be about her vanishing act from my life. I could arrange for Derek to help me stage a major surprise where Lisa would think we were rekindling things, only to slam her with the truth in front of our friends. I started to plan a house party, inviting our closest friends and making it seem like just a casual get-together. I told Derek about my idea, and he was all in. "I can set up a magic show," he said enthusiastically. "We can make her disappear in front of everyone and then reveal the truth." With the plan taking shape, I spent the next week preparing everything. I got the guest list sorted, contacted people to bring food and drinks, and worked out the details with Derek. It felt oddly exhilarating to think I would be taking control of the situation and turning the tables on her. As the day of the party approached, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. I was ready to show Lisa that her actions had consequences, but part of me was still that guy who loved her deeply. There was a lingering hope that maybe, just maybe, she would realize her mistakes and we could find a way to reconnect. But I knew that was unlikely. The more I thought about it, the more I felt justified in my actions. On the day of the party, I did my best to put on a happy face. Lisa seemed oblivious to my plans, busying herself with preparations as she cleaned the house and set up decorations. I could hear her laughing and chatting with our friends as they arrived, and I steeled myself for the performance that was about to unfold. As the night progressed, I played the role of the doting husband, pouring drinks and ensuring everyone was having a good time. Derek arrived early, and we went over the final details of the magic show. I could feel the tension building inside me as I watched Lisa enjoy herself, completely unaware of what was coming next. When it was time for the show, I gathered everyone into the living room and introduced Derek. He started with a few light tricks to warm up the crowd, and they were loving it. Laughter filled the air, and for a moment I felt a pang of nostalgia for the good times we had as a couple. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. Derek announced he was going to attempt a grand illusion, a disappearing act. Everyone leaned in closer, intrigued. I could feel my heart racing as I watched Lisa, excitement dancing in her eyes. I knew she was thinking this would be a fun spectacle, but she had no idea it was about to turn into her reality. Derek called Lisa up on stage, requesting her to be his assistant for the trick. She stepped forward, beaming, completely unaware that this was her final moment in the spotlight. As he began the illusion, I knew that soon the truth would come crashing down around her. I would reveal everything in front of our friends, and there was no turning back now. The atmosphere in the room was electric. As Derek orchestrated the illusion, Lisa was completely in her element, twirling in her dress and playing the part of the glamorous assistant. The way she smiled and laughed in front of our friends made it seem like we were still that perfect couple, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Derek's routine was masterful. He had everyone captivated, weaving a tale that built anticipation as Lisa stepped into the large box he had brought with him. The audience leaned in, eager to see how the trick would unfold. I watched from the sidelines, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it, the moment I had been planning for. I felt both excitement and dread. The culmination of so much pent-up emotion was about to explode. "Now, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my lovely assistant, Lisa," Derek declared, waving his arms dramatically. The crowd erupted in applause, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness mixed in with my bitterness. I had loved this woman fiercely, and now I was about to call her out in front of everyone. As Derek closed the doors of the box, he began his elaborate incantation. He gestured with flair, creating an atmosphere of mystery. I glanced at Lisa, who was giggling and enjoying the moment. Her smile felt like a dagger in my heart. I had to remind myself why I was doing this, to show her the consequences of her actions and to reclaim my life. With the final flourish, Derek snapped his fingers and the box was supposed to open, revealing that Lisa had vanished. But that wasn't the only surprise I had in store. I could feel the tension in the room as he pulled the doors open dramatically, only to reveal that the space was empty. Laughter erupted as everyone gasped in astonishment, unaware of what I was about to do. "Now, where could she possibly be?" Derek asked, playing along, but the true reveal was yet to come. "Oh, I think I have an idea." I took a deep breath, stepping forward, my heart racing. It was time for the truth to come out. "She's not missing, folks. She's been right here in front of you all this time, cheating on me with this magician." The words came out louder than I intended, cutting through the laughter like a knife. The laughter died instantly. Faces turned toward me, a mixture of shock and confusion spreading throughout the room. Lisa's eyes widened, her smile faltering. "Jake, wait," she started, her voice trembling, but I wasn't about to let her derail this moment. "I found the messages," I continued, raising my phone high enough for everyone to see. "I know about Max. I know you've been lying to me." My voice trembled with emotion, but I pressed on, fueled by the adrenaline of finally confronting the truth. It felt like a weight was lifting off my shoulders as I spoke. "You've been playing games with my heart, and now the illusion is over." The room erupted into gasps and murmurs. I could see the realization dawn on our friends, and I sensed the shift in the atmosphere. Derek stepped back, clearly taken aback by the sudden turn of events. He had no idea what I was planning. Lisa stood frozen, a mix of shock and disbelief flooding her features. "Jake, you can't do this," she cried, but there was a tremor in her voice that told me she knew it was too late for excuses. "You do. Understand." "Understand what?" I shot back, my voice growing stronger. "That you've been lying to me for months, that I've been a fool thinking everything was fine. You think this is just a game." "I was lonely," she exclaimed, her voice rising in desperation. "You were never around. I needed someone, and yes, I messed up. But it didn't mean anything, Jake." She glanced around the room, her expression morphing from panic to anger. "You don't have to do this in front of everyone." But I couldn't back down now. I felt empowered, finally standing up for myself. "You made your choices, Lisa. Now you have to face the consequences. You've hurt me, and I'm not going to let you walk away unscathed." The intensity of the moment left the crowd in stunned silence. They were all witnesses to this painful revelation, and I could feel their judgment weighing on Lisa. I knew this was hard on her, but it was harder for me. I had to expose the truth, not just for my sake, but to reclaim my dignity. As I looked around at the faces of our friends, I noticed a mix of sympathy and disappointment. Some were shaking their heads while others simply looked stunned. This wasn't just Lisa's secret anymore. It was a reality that affected us all. In that moment, I could feel my resolve hardening. I was done with the lies, the betrayal, and the hurt. I had loved Lisa fiercely, but now I felt repulsed by the way she had treated me. I could see her struggling to regain control of the situation, and I knew that deep down she was scared. Her facade was crumbling right before my eyes. "What now?" she demanded, her voice laced with defiance. "Are you going to throw all of this away, our life together, No, Lisa. You threw it away the moment you decided to betray my trust. I will no longer be the fool in this relationship. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of clarity wash over me. I had finally found my voice, and it felt liberating. And as for this magic show, I said, turning to Derek, I think we've seen enough magic for one night. I gestured toward the box. Time to make the illusion of our marriage disappear too. With that, I walked away from the stage, leaving Lisa standing there, torn between humiliation and regret. I felt a sense of empowerment surge through me. I had finally taken control of my narrative. I was ready to move forward no matter what came next. The aftermath of the confrontation was chaotic, but I was no longer afraid. I had stepped out of the shadows of doubt and betrayal, and I was determined to reclaim my life. The fallout from that night was immediate and intense. As I walked away from the stage, I could hear the murmurs of our friends, their shocked expressions etched in my mind. It felt surreal, almost like I was watching everything unfold from a distance. There was a part of me that wanted to turn back to comfort Lisa, to tell her how much I once loved her, but I quickly dismissed that thought. I had given her more than enough chances, and I was done being the one left holding the pieces. Once outside, I took several deep breaths, trying to calm my racing heart. I needed to think clearly. I could hear the commotion behind me as our friends tried to process what had just happened. I felt a sense of relief wash over me, but there was also a twinge of sadness. This was the end of a chapter, and it was painful to think about how quickly things had unraveled. Eventually, some of the guests filtered outside, glancing at me with a mix of sympathy and confusion. Derek followed suit, looking as if he was still trying to grasp what had just gone down. "Man, I had no idea," he started, his voice trailing off. "I'm really sorry about all this." "Thanks, Derek, I appreciate it, but this isn't on you," I replied, shaking my head. "You were just trying to put on a show." "Still, I didn't expect it to go that way. I thought we were just having some fun," he said, looking genuinely remorseful. "You sure you're okay?" I nodded slowly, though my insides were churning. "I will be. I think this is what I needed to do. I can't believe how easily she lied to me." Derek clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You deserve better, man. If you need anything, let me know. I'm here for you." I appreciated the support, but all I could think about was how lost I felt. I had just publicly exposed my wife's infidelity, and I was now standing alone outside our home, a house that suddenly felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. As the guests began to leave, I could see Lisa emerging from the house, her once glamorous appearance now a stark contrast to the tears streaming down her face. She looked vulnerable, and for a moment, part of me felt a pang of compassion. But that quickly faded as I remembered the betrayal that had led us here. "Jake," she called out, her voice cracking, "can we talk?" I hesitated, glancing at Derek, who nodded in silent support. I knew this conversation was unavoidable, but I was in no mood for excuses or half-hearted apologies. "What is there to talk about, Lisa?" I replied, crossing my arms defensively. "You've made your choices very clear. Please," she begged, her voice heavy with emotion. "Just give me a chance to explain." I messed up, that's an understatement. I interrupted, my anger flaring again. "You do just mess up like this, Lisa. You chose to betray me. You made a conscious decision to cheat on me." "I was feeling neglected. You were so caught up in your work, and I felt alone," she pleaded. "It wasn't supposed to happen. It was just a fling, but it meant nothing to me." I shook my head, feeling disbelief wash over me. "You think that makes it better? You put your needs above everything we built together. You didn't just ruin our marriage, you shattered my trust." "I know I messed up, and I'm so sorry," she continued, tears streaming down her face. "I want to make this right. Can't we just—" "No," I cut her off, feeling a surge of clarity. "I don't want to hear any more excuses. You had your chance, and you threw it away." Lisa looked at me, her eyes wide with hurt, and I could see the denial beginning to set in. "Jake, we can work this out. We can go to counseling, fix everything. I love you." "Do you really?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Because from where I stand, it seems like. Your love had an expiration date. You didn't care enough to respect our commitment when things got tough." "Please," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "I'll do anything. I'll show you I can change. Just don't throw everything away." There was a time when I would have considered her offer, but I felt a fierce resolve growing within me. "You've already thrown everything away, Lisa. You've made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences. I'm not interested in being your backup plan." The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. I could see the realization wash over her, a blend of shock and regret. She had genuinely thought she could talk her way out of this, but the truth was indisputable, and I had made my decision. "I need time," I said, my voice steadier now. "I need to figure out what I want, and I can't do that with you in my life. I think it's best that we go our separate ways." Lisa's face crumpled, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But then I reminded myself of the betrayal, the lies, and the pain. I couldn't allow myself to be swayed by her tears. "I'm sorry, but I mean it. It's over." With that, I turned away, leaving her standing there, tears in her eyes, as I walked toward my car parked at the curb. I could hear her calling after me, but I didn't look back. I needed to be resolute to take control of my life again. The pain of the betrayal would linger, but I was determined to reclaim my narrative, my happiness, whatever that looked like moving forward. As I drove away, an unexpected calm washed over me. I had made the hardest decision of my life, but I knew it was the right one. The illusion of our life together had finally vanished, and now I was free to start anew, even if I didn't know what that meant just yet. In the days that followed, I felt a mixture of relief and confusion. It was strange to be living alone after sharing a life with Lisa for so long. I hadn't anticipated how quiet the house would be, the walls echoing with memories of laughter and love that now felt tainted. I spent the first couple of days in a haze, trying to process everything that had happened. I found myself going through the motions: work, meals, and the scattered remnants of my former life. It was as if I were living in a bubble, and the world outside continued without me. I went to work, but my mind was elsewhere. My colleagues noticed my distracted demeanor, but I brushed off their concerns, insisting I was just tired. The most challenging part was dealing with the aftermath of the party. I had made quite a scene, and it wasn't just Lisa who was affected, it was our entire friend group. I received several texts from friends, some offering condolences and others asking if I wanted to talk. I appreciated their concern, but I was still processing the betrayal, and I didn't want to dive into the details just yet. One evening, I received a call from Derek. "Hey man, just checking in. How are you holding up?" "I'm okay, I guess," I replied, though the truth was far more complex. Just trying to wrap my head around everything. "I can only imagine. It was a rough night for everyone, and I'm really sorry about how it went down," he said. "If you need anything, let me know. I'm here for you." "Thanks, Derek. I appreciate it. I just need some time to think," I said, wishing I could shake this feeling of emptiness that lingered. "Have you heard from Lisa since?" he asked cautiously. "No," I admitted. "And I honestly don't want to. I think it's better this way." "Totally understand. Just remember, you've got support. You're not alone in this." I hung up feeling slightly better. It was comforting to know that someone had my back, but I still felt adrift. I needed to establish a new normal, and that would take time. After a week of solitude, my friends finally organized a small get-together at a local bar. They insisted it would be good for me to get out and socialize. I hesitated at first. The thought of facing them all, knowing the circumstances behind my breakup, felt daunting. But after some prodding, I agreed to meet them. When I arrived, the atmosphere was welcoming. Our friends had reserved a large table in the corner, and seeing their smiles was a reminder that life continued. I sat down, and they immediately began to fill me in on their lives, sharing stories and laughter that helped ease the tension surrounding the situation. But it didn't take long for the conversation to shift. "So, how are you holding up, Jake?" one friend, Sarah, asked gently. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Honestly, it's been tough. I'm still processing everything. It's just strange being alone after everything that happened." "I can't believe she did that to you," another friend chimed in. "You deserve so much better." "Thanks," I said, appreciating their support. "I just need to focus on moving forward now. I can't dwell on the past." The night continued, and although I felt a bit like a ghost floating through the gathering, I managed to engage in conversations. I laughed and joked with my friends, but the fleeting moments of joy were soon overshadowed by an underlying sadness. I realized how much I had lost, not just in Lisa but in the life we had built together. As the night wore on, I found myself sitting with Derek, who leaned in with an earnest expression. You know, after what happened, it's okay to take your time. Healing isn't linear, just don't let this define who you are. I know, I replied, but it's hard. I thought we had something real. Now I feel like a fool. You're not a fool, Jake. You loved her, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. What she did was her choice, not yours, he reassured me. You'll get through this, and when you do, you'll come out stronger. That comment resonated with me, and I found myself contemplating what my life would look like without Lisa. I had been defined by our relationship for so long, and now I needed to rediscover who I was as an individual. As the weeks passed, I made a conscious effort to focus on myself. I started going to the gym regularly, rediscovered hobbies that I had abandoned, and even began to explore the local art scene. I was cautious about jumping into dating again. The wounds from my marriage were still fresh, and I didn't want to rush into something new just to fill the void. I also decided to reach out to a counselor. I knew that talking to someone would help me process my feelings more effectively. The sessions provided a safe space to work through my anger, sadness, and confusion. It was liberating to articulate everything that had happened, and gradually I could feel the weight of the betrayal lifting. One afternoon, while flipping through my phone, I stumbled upon an old photo of Lisa and me. We were at the beach, laughing and carefree. A wave of nostalgia hit me, and I felt tears well up. It was a bittersweet reminder of the love we once shared, but also of the betrayal that shattered it. I took a moment to reflect, acknowledging the good times we had while also accepting that they were part of a painful chapter in my life. I learned that it was okay to grieve the loss of our relationship while also recognizing that I deserved better. The journey of healing was ongoing, but I felt more equipped to handle it. I was finally beginning to see a brighter future ahead, one where I could find happiness again on my own terms. With each passing day, I felt stronger. I was learning to navigate this new landscape without Lisa, and while it was daunting, I was ready to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. I knew I had the support of my friends and my own resilience to rely on. I was ready to rediscover my identity and find joy again, no matter how long it took. And with that realization, I felt a renewed sense of hope. The illusion was gone, and I was ready to face whatever came next with courage. As I continued my journey of healing, I learned to embrace the lessons that came with such a painful experience. Each day marked a small victory. I found joy in little things I had neglected before. I started experimenting with cooking, something Lisa used to do but I had never really appreciated. I discovered a love for trying new recipes, and I even signed up for a cooking class. I made new friends along the way, people who were supportive and encouraging. They reminded me that life was still full of possibilities and that I could redefine my future however I wanted. I was no longer bound by my past. I was free to explore new paths, new relationships, and new adventures. One evening, while I was out with some friends at a local bar, I met a woman named Emily. She was witty and charming, and there was an instant connection between us. We shared stories, and I found myself opening up about my recent past, not in detail but enough for her to understand that I was still navigating the aftermath of a difficult relationship. Instead of recoiling, Emily listened intently and offered understanding, which was refreshing. She shared her own journey of overcoming heartbreak, and as we talked, I felt a sense of camaraderie that I hadn't felt in a long time. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I began to spend more time together. We went hiking, visited art galleries, and even attended a couple of cooking classes together. With each interaction, I felt more and more like myself again. It was as if I was shedding layers of hurt and reclaiming parts of my identity I had forgotten. Despite my blossoming connection with Emily, I was still cautious. I made sure to communicate openly about my feelings and reservations. I didn't want to rush into something before I was truly ready. And to my relief, Emily was incredibly understanding. She appreciated my honesty. And instead of pressuring me, she let our relationship develop naturally. A few months passed, and as the seasons changed, so did my perspective. I realized that while Lisa's betrayal had wounded me deeply, it had also propelled me to become a better version of myself. I was no longer the man who would accept being treated poorly. I was learning to value my self-worth and to seek relationships that uplifted me. Then one day, I received a text from Lisa. My heart raced and I instinctively felt a rush of anxiety. It was short and simple, asking if we could talk. I hadn't spoken to her since that night at the party, and the prospect of facing her again stirred a mix of emotions. Part of me was angry, while another part was curious about what she had to say. After some deliberation, I decided to meet her. I knew I had come a long way and wanted to approach this conversation with an open mind. When I arrived at the cafe where we agreed to meet, my palms were sweaty, but I reminded myself that I was in control of my narrative now. Lisa was already there, fidgeting. With her coffee cup as I approached, she looked different, more subdued and less confident than I remembered. There was an air of vulnerability about her that struck me. "Hey, Jake," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thanks for meeting me." "Sure," I replied, taking a seat across from her. "What did you want to talk about?" "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, pausing to gather her thoughts. "I'm sorry for how everything went down. I know I hurt you and I deeply regret it." I didn't realize what I had until I lost it. I listened but felt a familiar mix of anger and sadness bubbling up. "Lisa, you had every opportunity to make things right before it got to this point. I don't think your regret is enough to fix what you broke." "I know," she admitted, tears welling in her eyes, "but I wanted you to know that I've been working on myself. I've been going to therapy. I've had to confront my own shortcomings, and it's been an eye-opening experience." I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me wanted to see her genuinely change, but I also had to protect my own heart. "I'm glad you're working on yourself, but that doesn't change what happened between us." "I understand," she replied, her voice trembling. "I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I wish things could have been different." "Thanks for saying that," I said, feeling a weight lift off my chest. "I've moved on, Lisa. I'm focusing on my own life now, and I deserve to be happy." She nodded, and in that moment I saw the glimmer of acceptance in her eyes. We both understood that there was no going back to what we once had. We were on separate paths now, and that was okay. As we wrapped up our conversation, I felt a strange sense of closure. I could finally release the remnants of the anger and hurt that had clouded my heart for so long. "I wish you well, Lisa. I truly hope you find the happiness you're searching for." "Thank you, Jake," she said softly, and I knew we were both ready to move forward. Leaving the cafe, I felt lighter than I had in months. I had faced my past, confronted the pain, and emerged stronger. The experience had reshaped me, and while I was still on my journey, I could see a future filled with promise. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city, I realized that I was no longer defined by my past. I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, with an open heart and a renewed spirit. The illusion was gone, but in its place was something far more valuable, a sense of self, clarity, and hope for the future. It was time to live my life fully, and I was excited for the possibilities that awaited me.